Welcome and thanks for watching. This is Ingrid Edstrom, and this is the Accounting Alchemy Network Community Wisdom Lyceum on October 12th of 2023. And we've got just a small handful of our members coming together to discuss whatever ends up coming up, which I'm guessing is going to be pretty juicy given who's in the rooms. So yeah, we've got some fun things to go over today. Before we dive in with that, we would love to start this meeting the way we like to start all of our meetings, with a brief grounding and a check-in. So I would love to toss it out there. Is anyone feeling inspired to lead the grounding today, or would you like me to?
You can.
Okay. We all want to take a moment to close our eyes or lower our gaze, whatever feels good to us in this moment. And let's take just a few nice deep breaths in through the nose. And releasing down into the earth, feeling the earth beneath us. And on this next breath, sending some extra love and attention to any areas of our body that need some love and attention. And releasing any stress or tension we might have been holding down into the earth beneath us. And on this next breath, really just feeling gratitude for the air we get to breathe, for the spark of life that is the fire within us, for the air, the water in and all around us, and for this beautiful earth holding us to her with her gravity like a perpetual hug. We are always being held by our mother. And feeling the interplay of energy as we're held by this gravity down into the earth, as we release anything that is no longer serving us, allowing Pachamama to receive and compost that, and receiving revitalized energy back up from the earth. Maybe even picturing roots coming from our bodies, releasing that we don't need and sucking up new nutrients from our Mother Earth, and drawing those nutrients all the way up through our bodies and through the crown of our heads into the sky. Feeling the sun, moon, and stars, the cosmos above us. And also receiving that amazing light energy from the cosmos above, and how that comes down through our bodies and into the earth. That amazing interplay of energy. We are a conduit for the energy transfer between earth and sky. And just taking this moment to fully arrive in this place in time, allowing ourselves to be in our bodies, and expanding our awareness to the ecosystems all around us. These beautiful places we call our homes, their families and fur babies, and all the plants, animals, fungi, microorganisms, all of the systems of life around us, the wind and rain, the soil. And feeling into those patterns of life and where we fit in those patterns. Recognizing that in this moment, we are part of nature, part of these ecosystems. And we don't have to do anything to belong. In this place and time, in this dance of life, we are worthy, we are enough. And also acknowledging the people who have stewarded these ecosystems for millennia. Many of us may be seated on unceded ancestral lands of people who were forced from these places. So recognizing that the things that we do get to do, the things that we choose to do, have great impact in our world, and that we get to do the beautiful work of healing the injustices of the past and endeavoring to create the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible through regenerative practices, and allowing our hearts to fill with gratitude for this beautiful work that we get to do, and expanding that gratitude to fill our bodies and the space all around us. And maybe giving our bodies a nice stretch. Another deep breath as we come back together, ready for our conversation. Thanks to each of you for being here today. And let's do a round of check-ins. we want to just think about for a moment how we are and what is alive for us. If you want to share your name, your pronouns, location, and how you're feeling and whatever's alive for you today. And I'll go ahead and pop that into the chat. Matthew, would you maybe like to kick us off?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So Matthew Hegum, I am one of the co-founders of the Accounting Alchemy Network, and I am broadcasting from Custer, Washington, which is the land of the Coast Salish people. There are multiple tribes from this area. And I am feeling revved up and excited. Alice and Ingrid and I I was giving Ingrid an update on some things going on in my life that are curiosities around nonprofits. And so when we found out you were coming, it was like, got me all excited. And yeah, and I think that's it. Cool.
All right. Well, I'm Allison Morris. I use they, them pronouns, and I am in Michigan, which is, I'm actually on ceded land, but however, I mean, that said, I suspect that there were power differentials when that land was ceded. So I am, that land was ceded by the historical caretakers in Michigan, Anishinaabe, tribal identities, for establishment of University of Michigan. So whatever that counts for. I am coming into this very excited. I first learned about the Accounting Alchemy Network last week at the Power Pay conference that was put on by Sociocracy, where there was a lot of discussion about different ways to think about money. And I was very excited that there was a professional organization that is thinking about a lot of the things that I've been pondering in isolation. So I'm coming in with a lot of excitement.
We're so excited you're here. Rhonda, would you like to check in?
Sure. So my name is Rhonda Viator, and I am actually also in Michigan. I'm in Traverse City, Michigan. And I am also on the land of the Anishin, I don't know how to say it exactly, Anishinaabe, Nabi. And I just moved back here after being gone for 28 years. I met Ingrid through the Pachamama Alliance. No, actually, I met it through a friend who then connected me to the Pachamama Alliance. And I have been in the banking industry since 1995. And I feel like there's a better way to operate in the world of the financial systems that are not only fair for all, but actually empowers connection, community, partnership, and unity. So.
Thank you, Rhonda. And I'm Ingrid Edstrom, she, her pronouns. I'm located on the unceded ancestral lands of the Shasta and Takilma peoples in Southern Oregon. And today I'm feeling pretty good in this moment. I'm overall pretty tired. It's been a solid week of meetings already. And yeah, I'm pushing, trying to figure out how many ends a candle has to burn. And what's alive for me today, my last call last night, I had a great call with a fellow named Alex from an organization called Recom, and we were talking about rematriation of lands, which is something that I'm working on with this beautiful 2 acres that I love to call my home, that I do not refer to as property, because that is a pronoun change, trying to remove the word property from my vocabulary as it pertains to living systems. And yeah, what does it look like to have this land own itself? And making progress in figuring that out and talking with environmental rights attorneys, and yeah, exciting stuff going on. So I'm super passionate about everything that I'm doing right now, and I might be doing a little too much sometimes. So trying to balance it all and figure out how to make it sustainable and regenerative. Sustainable as far as like, oh, it'd be good if I occasionally got paid for some of this so that I can actually pay my mortgage. Yeah, so figuring all of that out. And I'm really excited for us to kind of kick off our conversation. I know Matthew has some questions about nonprofits, and we're excited to dive into that and getting to know you, Allison, and also would love to talk with both of you, and in particular, Rhonda, about some of the upcoming potential shifts and changes and ways that we can leverage this community of the Accounting Alchemy Network for the greatest potential impact, and what it might look like to get more engagement from our members. And the fact that Allison's joining us for the first time and you're excited to be here. And yeah, we're needing more people who are interested in stepping into these conversations, and especially who have a little bit of knowledge in the topics that we're talking about already, which clearly, from looking at the new.org website that I was just perusing through a little bit, you are right alongside us in wanting to find more people to talk about these things with, and how can we create a rising tide that raises all ships, and trying to do it in a decentralized way. So Matthew and I and our co-founder Alina have been trying to figure out how to have more leaders step forward within these conversations, so that it doesn't keep falling to the 3 of us. And in order to do that, we've got to create opportunities for people to lead, and also recognizing where there's a pretty big learning curve around getting started in some of these topics. And would love to hear ideas and feedback from you both around what are some of the biggest problems we're facing within the financial industries, within our world, and what we can do as kind of a coalition, this network, to create the changes we want to see in the world. So with that, Matthew, do you want to maybe kick us off with some of your nonprofit questions? Because I feel like that could really get the conversation rolling on a fun way.
Yeah, sure. And I'll put it into some maybe larger context. So it's not just about nonprofits, but I think, Allison, for you to know, I am in a career transition right now. I've been in the accounting industry for 15 some odd years. I've been serving in executive roles, consultant roles, doing work on an industry level, teaching it at QuickBooks Connect and XeroCon and that kind of stuff. And as of late, working with Ingrid to build this community at the Accounting Alchemy Network, and simultaneously building my own practice around serving artists, particularly self-producing artists, and sort of taking a more holistic approach towards helping them understand how they improve how they make and manage money, right? And so that has branched out into the individual artists as well as the arts organization, and so subsequently that means nonprofits explicitly. And I have a background in both for-profit and nonprofit. And so anyway, so I have the rights to a franchise called Breakaway, and I was on the call with the advisors yesterday talking about my career trajectory and what it looks like. And at one point I said to them, I got into this thing about, okay, well, like I figured out what my educational pathway looks like and what I'm really good at. Like it's weird. And anyways, but I'm happy about it. And like how that can unfold. And then it got to the point, it was like, okay, what do I really want to be doing? And I was explaining to Ingrid how, down the road, this career path looks like, includes project management, program management, conflict resolution, and really trying to understand, like, what would it look like to be responsible for helping a large group of people, right, move through a major initiative where there was conflict and there was disagreement, but at the end of the day, it was about social impact. Like, I would like to have a project of that magnitude on my to-do list, right? Because if we're going to change the world, yes, I agree, changing one person at a time is important. It's part of the journey. I think that's at the heart of, you know, what AAN is helping the individual to step forward. And seriously, I want to figure out like how to get like everybody in this town to do a project together that changes the world. Let's do that, right? And so I was explaining this to these two advisors because I'm open to, you know, in terms of how I make money and where my skills get housed, right? It could be this company, it could be this company, it could be this client, it could be that client. I don't,
Right.
you know, I don't care like, you know, where it is. And so I was like, look, if I can live into that and become that kind of a person inside of this, you know, this container of this franchise, then great, let's do it. Let's talk about it. But I don't think that I want to spend all my time trying to figure out how to help nonprofits record their transactions in QuickBooks, because that's the opposite direction of what I'm talking about, which is around social impact at scale. And then I further explained to them, I was like, okay, and to be honest with you, I don't think that the nonprofit structure is the right structure for everyone. And certainly I have a lot of concerns about even the ones that do exist and the limitations that are placed upon them and the bureaucracy and the infrastructure. And, you know, so many executive directors are just like, okay, how do we get another board member? They're spending all their day trying to figure out how to get another board member, not how can we innovate on our programming, serve our clients better or our constituents better. And so anyway, so I went off on a little nonprofit tangent about that. But anyway, so that's kind of what was sort of fueling me right now. Is like, okay, you know, and one of the questions that was asked, and I think this is where I see this related to accounting, is like, at one point in the conversation, they asked me, it's like, well, if you don't see yourself as being an accountant, that's okay, and And in my mind, I was thinking, well, not the kind of accountant that we're talking about here. I want to account for something much greater, right? And I want those measurements to be something much more significant than did we, you know, achieve a percentage on our cost of goods. Like, that's not interesting to me right now, right? Anyway, so that was sort of, you know, and then we were like, wait, who's this person, Allison, coming? And, you know, so anyway, so I put that on the table because that, you know, that's really where I'm at right now, and I'm curious to like learn a little bit more about you, Allison, and where you're at. Yeah.
Let me talk you through a little bit about sort of what I do and what my perspective is on it. Because I've been, well, it's sort of a mixed bag, but I've been lucky to take on this sort of third party financial consulting for nonprofits and mission based organizations when it was really just starting. So it's something that back in, say, 2017, 2018, our news CFO at the time thought, okay, well, I have some extra time. Maybe I can help out some of our clients with that. And took on, we do a bunch of different things. And the way I usually describe New is that we are a nonprofit that helps nonprofits with a lot of the sort of organizational and backroom and kind of resources. And that's changed over time a great deal. So at that time, this was one person in sort of his non-CFO work. He was doing a little bookkeeping for three or four of our clients. And that was very much at the time, very, very sort of, okay, well, you tell me how you want this recorded, I will record it. That will take it off your shoulders. So you'll have a little more time to use. We have when I came in, it was in part because he was moving that off of uh, his desk because he didn't have the time for it anymore. But I was able to sort of start growing that. And as soon as I started growing it, I started looking for, okay, I can't I can't quite meet people where they are with the books that they have as they are set up now. And that's something that was kind of a positive because I was thinking all through, wow, why do these people have their books set up in this way? They're making extra work, or there are a lot of duplicate accounts, or it's clear that they've moved through multiple accountants. And so there have been multiple perspectives without anything unifying. And so over time, I wound up developing a sort of standardized nonprofit chart of accounts. And uh, what that is very simplified. It's very much serves the needs of the 990, the tax return that nonprofits do. So it sort of breaks things out in that way. There's a lot of space for moving things around, but the most crucial thing that I think I did there was putting everything into understandable language for whomever came and looked at things. The I was lucky in that I had come into working in finance after working in fundraising, after working in staff management, after working in membership recruitment. So I had a lot of I'd been on the other side of that, oh, we're scared of the accountant and they're gonna throw a bunch of like they're gonna say cash receipts and accounts receivable and I'm not gonna know what they're talking about. So I'm just gonna sort of smile and nod. And what that's allowed me to do by sort of standardizing that and making things as transparent as possible is that I'm sort of able to sneak in a lot of education about how money actually kind of works. And I don't know if this is universal, but a lot of what I run into, particularly in nonprofits, is a lot of people with trauma around money and a lot of people with trauma or fear around numbers in general. Sort of that sort of I'm an artist, I don't do numbers, or I'm a creative, or oh, I'm here for the mission, and I just the money talk scares me. Um, so really bringing people into that in a eating the elephant one bite at a time, kind of saying, all right, well, let's take you through how this works. And it- that can mean answering the same question for folks time after time, where they say, oh, what is this accounts receivable and why are there numbers there? Um, re-explaining, oh, here's how accrual accounting works. Uh, but then kind of trying to drill down and figure out, all right, how do we equip you? Because while our goal is not to bring on clients and then usher them out again, it's to not reproduce sort of an entrepreneurial nonprofit mindset. And that when you mentioned sort of like, do there need to be these nonprofits? I That's something that I think a lot of people in nonprofits are thinking about all the time. Sort of the system has to change, but in the meantime, we need harm reduction. You know, we've got a shelter that we operate. So, um, but by sheltering people, are we actually contributing to the problem?
Mm,
Um, so sort of balancing that and saying your goal in a nonprofit or in any mission sort of centered organization isn't to have a flourishing and sustainable organization. It is to accomplish that mission. And maybe you need to have a sustainable and flourishing organization in order to accomplish that mission, but it's not your primary goal. And sort of recentering people on that. So not only maybe they're getting bigger, maybe they're getting smaller, maybe they're going to get to the point where they're going to hire somebody in-house, which is great. I mean, we're thrilled when that happens. But also maybe they're shrinking enough that at some point somebody on their board is going to do their books or they're going to be able to sort of wind things up or merge with another organization or really inspire their community and have things be more hands-on. So we're juggling a lot of goals at the same time. Education, demystification, making numbers not quite so scary, making math not quite so scary, potentially, if necessary, figuring out, how do we help people compartmentalize between thinking about their own money, which is very fraught, and thinking about the organization's money, which maybe if you can create a remove there, you can think more reasonably about it. You can make better plans. And an overall goal of how do you tell a story with the numbers? Not how do we check a bunch of boxes because we've been told that we have to produce financials every month, but how can we plan based on this? How can we strategize? How can we tell people in the community that we're in fact doing what we're supposed to be doing? I'm not sure if I really hit it there, but we do some one and done stuff where it's somebody comes to us and says, we've got a filing cabinet full of receipts and nothing else. And we help them set up and meet with them a couple of times and show them how to do things. But we're not training people on using accounting software. We're orienting them to it and then saying, talk to the software producers. They're the experts. And also it changes all the time. So I guess it's not, what we deliver is not accounting. At its heart, it's really another set of hands so that folks can do what they think is so they can achieve their goals.
Cool. Thank you. Lots to look at inside of that. Can we check in with Rhonda? I'd love to hear if there's anything resonating with you, Rhonda, just from what's been shared so far.
How insightful to live like this. I think what really struck me is when you had mentioned scaling up or scaling down the mission, right? Because depending on their mission, is the mission, it's, depending on their mission, it may be actually to kind of put them out of business because then the mission is complete. I don't know. I'm just really blown away by the different way that you guys are looking at approaching, educating, and just kind of blown away by your insightfulness and how your approach.
We're definitely very informed by previous work, not necessarily accounting-based work, but a lot of the thought around fundraising and money laundering. How much money laundering or reputation laundering is happening, and where is that not okay? Uh, Also, deeper thoughts like, okay, well, when you're a broke nonprofit, of course you're going to get an Amazon account and a Staples account, but that means that all of your money is leaving your community,
Mm.
and very little is coming back. And I mean, another nonprofit thing is the easiest place to get a bank account as a startup nonprofit is Chase. Chase has plenty of has done damage sometimes to these communities. But yeah, we're also heavily informed by works like "The Revolution Will Not Be Funded." That sort of idea that um, we're not we're not here as mission-based organizations to prop up or sort of subcontract community good. We're here to create temporary supports and then also support that work of making the common good more common.
Do you work with the banks a lot? Because there are more and more like B certified banks,
Mm-hmm.
based banks. And I actually worked for Bank One that
Mm-hmm.
Bank One became, I can't remember if I was with Chase or not. I think it
Mm-hmm.
did Chase. I mean, every community bank I've worked for ended up becoming a big conglomerate bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really start diving into the banking industry. But I mean, JP Morgan has done so much damage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
who, with the fossil fuels, I mean, just who they are funding, the lines of,
Yeah.
I mean, just it's incredible. And I think that if more people actually knew
Mm-hmm.
about industry, about how the banks actually make money, and they
Mm-hmm.
understand holding your money, they're making money,
Mm-hmm.
and that towards something. I think more people, I think that's really a conversation for people to really have, is what bank are you actually banking
Yeah.
at, and they actually, what do they stand for, and not only what they
Right.
stand for. A lot of people, how do you even get most people can't even see the books of what a bank is actually really doing.
Right. Right. There's also historical accountability, and a few banks, I mean, mainly the really big ones, you can kind of trace back and say, "Oh, okay, you made all your money out of slavery," or, "Oh, okay, you're, up till the late 70s, you were denying X, or you were heavily involved in redlining, or even you're still involved in redlining."
Right.
And the easiest way to find that out, sadly, is when they get sued. Um, so it reminds me, it's similar to enforcement of the ADA like that. The idea that uh, ADA compliance isn't it's not checked for, it's not certified. It it doesn't get fixed until someone sues. Um, I do know, and I learned about this earlier this week, that there's research going on at University of Michigan about bank accountability and uh, involvement in uh, housing association rules and sundown towns and redlining. Um, but I think there's a larger, figure out who your local bank is owned by. Figure out then, you know, what was its old name. And some of that is just, calling local libraries and saying, all right, is it possible to research, what was the old name of First National downtown? Uh, I do think that there's a level of, you have to make some decisions about where you're going to draw the line. Um, it, there there just aren't enough justice-oriented banks, and that that that's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I mean, there some of this is also, if you research mortgage banks, uh, you'll get that sort of, well, Amalgamated is a B Corp, and Amalgamated actually has talked about the importance of reparations and has backed that. But the fact that they did that didn't start an avalanche of other banks doing that. Um, so I think it's not just saying, okay, are you a B Corp, but also, are you actually walking your talk? What have you actually stated publicly? And then where are you sending that money? And on a case by case basis, and this is another sort of nonprofit things. Nonprofits often work in isolation, um, and reinvent the wheel constantly, which is another exhausting thing that keeps us from really learning. And I think that's yet another sort of, possibility raised by a group like this, in that there are many hands. And even if it's not a group like this, it's maybe the networks of a group like this, of saying, okay, well, who are those just banks? Um, Honestly, I default to credit unions a lot, and um, that's not without problems either. It's uh, Credit unions don't always have the resources that banks have, and sometimes are much, much harder to work with because of that. But at least you know that the money is staying within their service group or within their community.
I think that you bring up some really great points, and I kind of makes me kind of really think about. It's too bad there isn't some sort of platform, almost like in every, you know, maybe every state, but more, where somebody actually is doing some research
Hmm.
and publishing this research, because I think that there is a good majority of people that go, you know what, when I am working for a bank, this is what I want to, who I want to work for. When I'm putting
Right.
money out, this is who I want to, and I think for me, one of the almost issues that, I think it's different when you're an employee, and I think it's, because I previously I was a loan consultant. So if you were starting a business, then essentially, um, you called. Usually, it was the banker that couldn't get the deal done, but it was a good deal, so he called me. Um, and it becomes a who has the best rate, who has the best, and and even in that, there's, and I hate to say it, but like when they've come to a broker or consultant, like they just want the money, they don't care, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and want this business to, and maybe that's true, maybe that's actually not true, and I think it also has to do on what clients are coming to you, because I think that there is a growing number of businesses that are going, I actually do care.
Hmm.
Not only do I care, I might not even want debt financing anymore. I don't like,
Yeah.
and been almost a restructuring in my mind of like, I don't know that debt's really all that great of a concept. I think
Hmm.
at the point, like the partnership and the unity and the collaboration, and investments. I mean, there is such a different energetic between investing and debt.
Right.
And um yeah, so I feel like there's actually a lot that could expand from that and become from that. That would be really empowering for, you know, and I, like I said, I always worked for medium-sized banks. And then they ended up becoming large banks. And I will tell you, most bankers are, not all, but probably the ones that I've come in contact with, 80% of them really, they're there because of the manager. They aren't there because of the bank. They know that they're, you know, they're a you know, a number. They're not they're beyond of a number, like they're a production.
Yeah.
And go up higher and higher. And most bankers like the paycheck, some of them, depending on, you know, their status level, but most of them are unbelievably stressed out, and majority of them are very unhappy. And I think the shift in I feel like there is a shift, especially in the younger generations that are going, I don't want to go into that crap. That does not sound appealing to me at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think that part of that is creating an expectation that is a conversation that people want to have about, you know, is my workplace ethical? Is my banker ethical? Am I, you know, it's like, am I buying dolphin safe tuna? But not until you don't have it's not on your checklist until someone starts to talk about it.
Right.
And say that there's another possibility.
Right.
Oh, hey, look, we're talking about it.
Yes.
Opening up all the possibilities.
Right.
I think to kind of to bring the conversation, you know, sort of full circle to a certain extent, touching back on what Matthew was saying earlier about the different business structures and, you know, nonprofits not being the end all be all of how to create the change. What would it look like for every organization, regardless of how they're organized, to be a mission-based organization, to be based upon values, and to have core principles that put people and planet before profit, recognizing that yes, profit is important. Profit is the price we pay for tomorrow. It has to be financially sustainable in order to be effective and to be able to continue. And how about we go about things in a way that is not extractive of our planet and exploitive of our peoples? And what does that look like? And those are some of the big conversations that we're working on here within the Accounting Alchemy Network, in large part because accounting professionals, as Matthew was saying, are the ones that can hold people accountable to a higher standard, and that we can account for more than just profit, in the same way that GDP, being the measure of success for our economy, is measuring the wrong thing, because our economy
absolutely
will be more successful based on GDP when our society is suffering. Cleaning up after a gigantic disaster, war, our broken medical systems are all extremely profitable. Yeah, there's suffering because of it. So if we can start focusing on what are the better metrics for us to measure, and how can accountants start accounting for those things? And oh, hey, with the advancements going on in artificial intelligence, a lot of the pieces that accountants have historically been doing financially are becoming more and more automated. So let's let the computers do the computing and have the humans do the humaning. And really start applying our creativity towards some of these bigger issues and figuring out what that looks like. How do we evolve the profession? And then, right in alignment to what we wanted to discuss a bit with Rhonda, being that Rhonda is coming in from the banking profession. Rhonda's not an accounting professional. There's been some discussion over the last couple of weeks about the potential of opening up the Accounting Alchemy Network to other financial professions, given that we've had bankers, economists, financial planners coming to us and saying, I want to play. How do I do this for my industry? And we had some ideas around, do we need to change the focus and turn this into the financial accounting or the financial alchemy network instead of just the accounting alchemy network? And we've been going back and forth quite a bit in discussion about pros and cons. And earlier this week, we're, just kind of discussing the potential of creating a pretty major disruption where, we're still launching this. We're only a year and a half in of creating the accounting alchemy network, and we're still building our audience, trying to gain traction, and are starting to lean toward the idea that keeping it as the accounting alchemy network does not mean that the other financial professions are not welcome to come and play with us.
Right.
And what does it look like to engage a wider diversity of financial professionals, recognizing that accounting in particular is a challenging place to have this conversation. That's one of the reasons why we're having it here. And it was actually in a conversation with Seth Feinberg earlier this week. He was like, as much as, it would make sense to bring in more financial professionals, and also we have to recognize accounting needs this. So,
accounting as the project. Like, I think even if you have folks who are coming in elsewhere, they're still stakeholders. They still have interest. And I mean, I kind of think that pretty much anybody who is dealing with money ever, which is everybody in this country at least, has input on this, because a lot of what we're talking about is so many things are driven by profitability, and profitability is measured by, of course, the last number on your P&L report. Is it positive? Is it big? Then that's good. Is it negative? Is it small? That's bad. But if it's small, if your profit margin is tiny, or your net income is tiny or negative, sometimes that signals, oh yeah, we're spending money we brought in last year, or we're spending our reserve, or oh yeah, it was enormous last year, but then we realized we weren't paying our staff a living wage. So now it's small, and that's actually a measure of success, because we've brought in that equity. So yeah, divorcing the idea of, reframing those reports, really. Like, is your balance sheet great if you have a lot of assets? Maybe not. But how do we? What's the alternative? And what are we? To come back to what you said, what are we meant to be measuring?
Yeah. And I was having a great conversation, actually, where this conversation started. Alina and I got to talk with Emma Woods, who is a regenerative economist out of the UK. And she was the one who we were having this conversation of, oh, do we need to open this up? Because we need more brilliant minds in the room who are doing this work in the financial realms. And one of the things that she was saying is that 95% of economics is common sense, but it gets shrouded behind this occupational licensure of, oh, you need to go to school for a decade in order to really understand this stuff. And it's like, maybe not. And it's similar with accounting. I mean, I do not have an accounting degree. I'm a biology major. And figuring out, how do we talk about these things? And the economist in that conversation, right after she was saying 95% of what I do is common sense, she was like, but accounting is Greek to me. I'm like, but 95% of what we're talking about here is common sense. So how do we open up these discussions and remove the barriers to entry to invite more people in to understand these ideas? And I want to just put out there that one of the most confusing pieces that perplexes people about accounting is the idea of equity. And how the idea of equity has kind of shifted the equation, and how back in whatever it was, the 1400s or something, when Pacioli, so-called came up with double entry bookkeeping, when actually he didn't come up with it. He just wrote it down and recorded it. It was something that the Arab traders had been doing for quite a while at that point already. But this idea of rolling over equity and building capital was a kind of new idea, and it shifted things at that point. And to look at those ideas and the impact that they've had, but then also looking at the language that we use for finance,
right?
Currency, cash flow, interest. What does it mean to be interested in something? What does it mean to invest? But also equity. What would it take to make equity equitable? And how many people aren't talking about that?
Yeah.
I think that's the big question that needs to be addressed in our world right now, is that the equity in most businesses is not equitable.
I
So
think
even
that
just,
I think that there's a lot of emphasis on hoarding rather than sharing. And that's when I think of equity, I think, oh yeah, that's what you've hoarded. Um, that's what you've guarded away for yourself. And yeah, I cannot explain equity to nonprofit clients because it doesn't really exist in nonprofits. And when it does, it's usually a sign that there's something wrong, or um, that they're not well, or at least that they're not a nonprofit as we usually talk about them, but maybe they're a foundation, or maybe they are some other form of wealth distribution machine.
yeah. So I guess the next question is, where do we want to go from here? So as we were talking with Rhonda about like how could we bring in other financial professionals? What are the things that we can do, actual actions we can take? Because we can talk about all these big shiny ideas in this wonderful little room. Matthew just posted that was literally the question in my head when you said that. What are the actions that we can take to shift these things? And how do we get more people involved in these conversations and taking action within our network and also within just each of our daily lives? What does that look like to engage people and invite them into these discussions?
Well, I think something that's come to mind for me is just, we spend a lot of time, Ingrid and I, keeping the baseline going for beating the, keeping the beat, if you will, right? In the music sense, keeping the beat for the Accounting Alchemy Network. And sometimes that means that like some things get done, some things don't get done, right? Because this is all volunteer work. And I'm starting to realize, and you've evidenced this, Ingrid, in your behaviors and your patterns when it comes time and you're like, okay, let me just email people, boom, 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 and then the emailing of them like produces the result. I feel like for me, I think what's next is like finding a sustainable practice around engaging individually with other AAN members, right? Not to like meet everybody in like 50 days, because obviously that's going to be insane. Or like, but like, okay, once a week, pick one person, reach out, say hi, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Let's schedule time to catch up. Would love to chat. And just like, that's it, right? Like keeping the cadence of like community engagement. Because I think people like me and we'd like to have good conversations. So I'm sure the response will be positive. And I think once it's like we get so many emails, we get so many text messages, we get so many WhatsApp messages, we get so many these, that's the other things, red little dots on our phone, just left and right. That like sometimes just like having that personal time to be like, hey, I would love it if you would show up for this, right? Like it happened to me yesterday. A friend of mine had a live stream. I knew about it. It sounded kind of interesting. I got the email. So I was like, oh, that's cool. But then I ended up in a meeting with him an hour and a half later from that email. And he was like, hey, Matthew, did you see that thing we're doing today? I would totally thought of you. I was like, oh, okay. And so I showed up to it, right? It's like that personal touch made the difference. I think that's my inside of the Accounting Alchemy Network. I think that's my next step.
And Matthew, I think that there's actually some power in what you've said. I mean, I think that, for me, kind of building this out is actually knowing other people within this membership. And then you also, me knowing you, it's how I basically met Ingrid. Is I met somebody else that put me in touch with Ingrid, and what? Matthew, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I'm loving the story, so keep going. It's perfect.
That's how it also expands organically. And then oh, you're like-minded in this. Oh, here's this. But you're one person, right? So like, if everybody was doing that, where everybody was intentionally saying, and maybe at some point it becomes a membership where there is a little bit of a membership fee, maybe not much, but something, because you guys should be getting paid. Like that's part of, it's us. Your work, your time and your energy is also valuable.
I appreciate that sentiment, Rhonda. And I want to put out there that, many hands can make light work. And if we can really make this a decentralized organization where people are encouraged to step forward, then the people who started it don't necessarily need to get paid for it. The place where, it becomes more effective and sustainable for me as a professional within the accounting field is I do coaching with other accounting professionals and consulting within businesses around how to be more values-based, how to apply these ideas within a business, how to set up a decentralized leadership model for a business. And one thing that I don't enjoy is marketing. Most of my marketing is word of mouth networking. And so just being aware of the services that I have to offer and the services that Matthew has to offer and the services that Alina has to offer, and recognizing that in order for this to be sustainable, we need referrals of people who actually want to apply these ideas on a deeper level and are happy to pay to have coaching and consulting to get to that point. And we don't, wave that flag everywhere, because that's not the purpose of this organization. The purposes of this organization, in large part, is to demonstrate how we can do this important work in our world on a grassroots level. And that's why it's so important to me anyway, to have it remain free, to have it remain accessible, to not have there be a financial barrier to entry of any sort, to just be part of the LinkedIn group and the Facebook group and be on our newsletter and watch all the things on YouTube. Yes, at some point there, maybe certain classes or something like that need a financial investment in order to participate. And that financial investment will go directly to the people offering the course. So one example of that being when we offer the Game Changer Intensive from the Pachamama Alliance, that is free by donation to the Pachamama Alliance. So encouraging people to donate to the organization that is making that possible is huge. And our partnership with the Pachamama Alliance has made it so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel of creating climate justice curriculum to give people the foundation of these things when there's another organization who's already teaching that piece of the puzzle really, really well. And that frees us up to focus on, okay, now what does this have to do with money, finance, accounting, and the financial industries? How can we do things within our unique position to leverage our position as the stewards of the financial narratives in our society to change our society.
I think the group thought process is hugely important, and I would echo you in the keeping it free, keeping it barrier free, and having added value items that people can pay for. Certainly, um, I I think there's a sort of mutual aid approach in um, helping each other through figuring things out. And it's not necessarily always, hey, I have this concrete problem that I need to solve, but it can be that sort of, how do I expand my imagination around what accounting can look like? How do I expand I mean, just the idea that financials look a certain way, and that because we're using double entry accounting, um, the tools for viewing that, it's your profit and loss report, it's your statement of financial position, it's your AR summary and your AP summary. All of those, like, where do you even start as an individual in how do I reimagine that? How do I reimagine reports? And I think that doing that thought process as individuals is almost counterproductive, because anyone who then invent some new financial report, and you work with 20 clients and convince them that it's great, it doesn't matter, because when you step out and they start working with somebody else, they're just going to get, what's this? and 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 let's go back to regular reports that everyone understands. I think that we need to creating a space where we can question things in a not in a binary way, not in a, is this useful, is this not useful, but a, which pieces of this actually serve our purpose, and let's get rid of the pieces that either aren't actionable or get in our way.
So which pieces aren't actionable or get in our way? Do you have examples?
Equity. uh, if Do you need an ANR aging report? Does it need to actually tell you how old things are if you're not going to send people late fees? Um, uh, do you just need to know, were they this year? Matthew?
Yeah, I have one. Complex board reporting for board members that don't even read the reports. That's something that can go away. Ugh.
Yeah, and if we show them a dashboard instead, what does that have on it that actually they can act on?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's sidebar. I'm on the board for a nonprofit, in spite of all of my feelings about it. And one of my missions, my focuses is with each of the committees that I've been working on board level. It's like, make this a data-driven committee. What is the dashboard? Next committee, make this a data-driven committee. What is the dashboard? And that's the focus. I'm with you on that. But it's like, you got to change the mindset of, there's a lot of mindset shifting that goes on, or that needs to go on too. And I think, yeah, so I also think another next step, something that we can all maybe do the next time we choose to come to an AAN event, though in all fairness, I'll probably be at all of them anyways, but is to bring a friend, like literally be like, okay, I'm going to an AAN event. I'm not going myself. I'm gonna like text this friend, hey, I'm a part of this group, I'm going to this thing, you should check it out. I know you don't know what it is, but like, come with me, right? Like inviting people to be in the conversation in the room, because like yesterday, and then also, not for nothing, but like sharing the content to a broader community. Like Ingrid, I was watching the video of the interview that we did with Nicole. So Rhonda and Alice and Nicole is a person we spotlighted last month for one of the Spotlight Lyceums. And the company that she works inside of, they shared the video. And I was like, and I was watching, I was like, damn, this is a good video. This is good content. And then my next reaction is like, well, why am I not putting this all over my LinkedIn profiles? Because I'm proud of this work and it's amazing work. And there's such powerful conversations. And I don't think, 90% of the people I know don't know that I'm doing this or don't know what it means. And so part of it, I think, is just letting people know, like, hey, I had this really cool conversation. You should check out this group. You should come with me next time. I think you'd like it, right? Yeah, that's a thought.
So I'm going to say something which is maybe a little bit off the wall,
Yeah.
but when I see AAN, I always think of Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I don't know. It just, those acronyms, just, that's my first thought when I always see those, is it has a very different meaning.
Which is interesting, right?
That hasn't struck me before.
Well, there
It
was.
what?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What did
I
you
was just
say?
saying it hasn't struck me before. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that before. What were you going to say, Matthew?
Yeah, and to your comment about not having noticed it before, there was one moment, I think, Ingrid, when we were designing the logo, and I know what it was, because okay, so this is a little inside like peek behind the curtain, Allison and Rhonda, but like the whole conversation was like, how do we change the accounting industry? And it was like, and I think my response to you was like a platform, an educational platform in like community, or just training people, right? And then it turned into a conversation about like the Accounting Alchemy Academy, right? Which that, when that came up, that was, I heard you, I was like, AAA, yeah, okay, but that was the only time.
Wait, do we sell roadside assistance?
AAA. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's another thing too. Okay, anyways, I could riff off that, but I'm not going to, because there's a joke there. But anyways, continuing. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. We were talking, if at some point we become more of an educational platform, which, that would be, probably years down the line in trajectory, having an Accounting Alchemy Academy, to house that educational piece. But right now, just building the network and building the movement is sort of where our focus is. But yeah, I guess interesting, because I always think of AA being Alcoholics Anonymous, and so having the N at the end, like that hadn't tripped in my brain, that particular association.
But I will say, not necessarily a bad association, and why I say that is because AA is about transforming your beliefs and your attitudes and your practices around an addiction. And I think in many ways, a lot of people are addicted to how we've been doing things, right? They're
Absolutely.
addicted to consumerism. They're addicted to sugar. They're addicted to like their comfort and what that means or doesn't mean for the communities that their houses are inside of. And so I think
the false security provided by capitalism.
Exactly.
And the exhaustion that means that you can't question it.
Yeah.
Also provided by capitalism.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you there. I also think that, I've been thinking, okay, AAN, yeah, it does make me think of Alcoholics Anonymous. But if you switch it around and make it NAA, then it's Narcotics Anonymous. ANA, it's ANA. Anytime I see ANA, I think of the anorexic survivor community.
Yeah.
So like
there are very few acronyms that are not being repurposed.
No,
we were talking yesterday about the Inflation Reduction Act, and people kept talking about the IRA. I'm like, the IRA is something completely different.
Yes.
I grew up on Irish music.
Yes.
And don't forget, we've got to put some money in our IRA.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think acronyms, it's just in order to have a name that at any point we want to acronymize, we're going to have to recognize that something's used it before.
Yeah. So can I just put something on the table, since Allison is new to us, and Rhonda, I think you got a little bit of a taste of this, but I just wanted to put it on the table. So Allison, one of the things that we've been working on internally to support people coming into the community is a playbook of like, hey, you're new to this community. First of all, what does this community stand for? What are our core values? How do those show up in the world? What are some key resources like our communications framework that will help you to kind of get your, jump into the pool and not feel like you don't know where to go, right? Like we've got some really solid foundational content. And then we built out somewhat of an instructional manual that like literally somebody could go down the list and be like, okay, because we knew that accountants like to check things off lists, so let's give them what they want, right? So it's like, okay, you could go down the list. Thank you, Rhonda. It was nice seeing you. Rhonda had to jump. That they could go down the list and be like, okay, did I do this? Yes. Okay, did I do this? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, and then sectioning it out so that you could kind of scale up your engagement at a level that's meaningful and appropriate for where you're at. So if all you can do right now is like move from subscriber to maybe attending some things, maybe showing up to a couple, okay, great, here's how you start. If you're like ready to move from like just attending things, maybe you want to get a little bit more involved but you're not ready to lead something, okay, then here's some action items. And I think we're at a point now where we're gearing up to release this in some format way to the community. And yeah, no, I mean, I think it'd be really, as a new member, right? Ingrid, I'm just kind of like workshopping this for a moment, but as like a brand new member who like, because a lot of the members in the community, to be frank, they know Ingrid and I, because we've all spoken at the conferences. We've seen each other for a while. We're doing things together, and now we're doing this together, right? But you didn't know us, and you found us through somewhat sort of an unexpected pathway, and now you're leaning in. You show up, and so I would love it if we like could walk you through at some point this playbook and see what you think of it, and like kind of understand, like, is this what you actually need to empower you, Allison, to like become who you think you can be or want to become in this community? That's, I guess, are you open to that, Allison?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of a trick that I use a lot with new staff at any place where I work, is finding the newest person and showing them the stuff I've been working on and saying, does any of this make sense, or does it only make sense inside my head? Like, yeah, if I get hit by a truck, are these things legible to someone who hasn't been talking to me every week?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to do that. And I'm interested in figuring out, where are we, like are we 4 steps along a 1,000-step path? Are we at 0 step? Are we at 50? So like, how far have we gotten with this? And so, I mean, I think that's also important as people come in, so that they're not faced with this sort of, oh, we thought about this already, or oh, this is a live discussion, or this is a discussion that wasn't resolved but was mothballed. That kind of, oh, people went quiet talking about X, but they didn't go quiet. They went quiet because they were tired, not because they found a solution. That allows people to feel like they're actually doing valuable thinking or valuable interactions. And part of that is, historically working with a lot of volunteers and realizing that people can volunteer with the best will in the world, and if you don't immediately give them something useful to do, then they're like, well, I guess you don't need me, and they leave.
Yeah. So let me propose something, and Ingrid, you can course correct me if you don't think this is workable. But I'm almost thinking, Ingrid, maybe we just hand the guide to Allison without much context. Hey, done. We're on. We seem to be
Okay.
like psychically
Email has
connected.
already been sent. I just shared the playbook with you, Allison.
Yay! Like, that's so
Thank you.
I love
Well,
it. Yeah, and
I'll,
Allison, like,
yeah.
there you go. That like that. I'm not going to say anything more about the playbook.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
but that I would love it if you could take some
Yeah.
time to just go through it and be like, okay, I'm a new member. Does this serve me? Right.
Mhm.
Does it
That's
make sense? I gave you commenter access.
Oh,
So
okay.
please comment away,
I
like
will.
highlight sections and be like, what the heck are you guys saying here? Because
And why?
it's clear, we want to make sure that it makes sense. And also, keeping in mind, like Matthew, Eileen, and I spent quite a lot of time drilling into every word on this document with some solid intention.
Mhm.
And it's some pretty elaborate spell work.
Yeah. Oh, I can believe it. Um,
yay.
but yes, sort of a little beta testing, I
Yeah.
guess.
So
Yeah.
right now, our rough plan, Alina took the document that I just sent you access to that's in
Mhm.
document format. She took it and she's already turned it into a Google slide deck. And our hope
Ooh.
is to create essentially a webinar out of it, because as much as we can send it to you in document format and you can read it, that appeals to some people's learning styles, but not everyone. And so we want to
Mhm.
create a more audiovisual experience for those who prefer an audiovisual experience.
Mhm.
So we're hoping to roll that out maybe next month. We'll see. We met with Seth Feinberg, who is a wonderful editor, professional editor within the accounting space, to get his ideas and feedback just earlier this week. And we'll be meeting with him again in a couple of weeks to go over his ideas. But he was saying, I think you're over 95% there. Like this is pretty solid. So that was huge to be like, oh, the editor says we're pretty solid, and now he's going to go through it with a slightly finer tooth comb. And also recognizing that it's an evolving document. It will be perpetually evolving as our organization and our members evolve and needs change. And the idea is to be going about this in a perpetually evolving, decentralized way, where this playbook and our other founding documents are the governance of this organization,
Yeah.
not the individual people.
Right.
And that so long as we are all showing up in alignment with the values and the practices that we're setting forth, which can be evolve and change in consensus with people as we're getting together to say, oh, hey, the wording of this, that's confusing. Maybe we need to, or, oh, hey, we've got a big hole, a blind spot here. It'd be good if we introduce some new practices of, how to handle these situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, would love as a brand new set of eyes, and particularly experienced eyes. You've been doing a lot of this work already. Would love your ideas and feedback.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think this sounds great.
Yay. So we've just a couple minutes before our wrap-up time. Do we want to do a quick round of any aha moments or action items or top takeaways from our discussion today?
Yes. Please. And I'll go first because I want you. I'm
I was gonna say,
requesting.
Matthew, you look like you're about to pop.
Yeah, 'cause I don't want to forget. Like seriously, Ingrid, I want you to help me with some accountability around like making it a goal to connect with an AAN member every week on an individual level, because I think that would be helpful for me, and I think it'd be helpful for us. I think it'd be helpful for them, and I just think it'd be a really good idea. So that's my action item, and I want to start that next week. So in fact, I'm going to go to our little Asana now and just write a little note in there, and that's my action item.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to share, Allison, or shall I go next?
I'm happy to go. It's a lot, but I'm also very encouraged that this conversation continues to echo a lot of the questions that I've been tackling on my own. So I feel everything feels much more achievable because it is a group effort. It is changing the way people think.
Hmm.
Thank you. And I think mine is the acknowledgement that speaking around the 5 pillars of regenerative accounting to the sociocracy for all, and branching into that, somewhat seemingly unrelated, but of course related because it's all interconnected, but stepping into that venue to talk about things. We actually got several people signing up for our newsletter around that, and there were quite a few people there who were, talking about participatory budgeting and things like that. And it's like, oh, this is a treasure trove of, potential collaborators who might be really interested in participating in an active way in these discussions. How do I find the other treasure troves? Because we need to access those people. How do we spread the word? And yeah, so Matthew, thank you for looking internally at how do we engage the people who've already subscribed but maybe haven't taken active part in what we're offering. And I'm looking at how do we engage the niches of probably interested people who just don't even know about us yet. So that's kind of where my mind is going. And if you have any ideas about that, Allison, like would love to see, like, okay, so who do you know? Yay. Well, thank you both for joining today. And thank you to Rhonda also, who had to jump off early. And thanks to anyone who's watching the replay of this on YouTube. I'm super, super excited for this delightful conversation. Yay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye.
You too. Bye.